You won't bastardize it like I did last week, did you?
Oh, I
Telling
won't.
you. I should have been the tech.
You should have. You would have been. You would have killed it.
All right, guys. Hey,
I would have killed it.
Hey, we are live. Tony,
Speaking.
talk about your black and white TVs. We are live.
Back in my day.
Hey, this is huge, guys. This is big time. We got Jeff Dickinson. Yeah. A lot of you know him as the handlebar maniac. That mustache, it's clutch.
I don't know about that. Where's the handlebars come from? I don't know.
Yeah. He looks like a driver, but he's a broker. So handle it.
No, I'm not broke. I'm not broke.
You got Tony Darnell here. One of my best friends, top 5 shipper in Northern Indiana. RV Magazine voted that one. But good dude, a lot of good insights. We got Jason Rabine on here. Guy's crazy. He's all over the place. He's selling T-shirts. He's booking freight. I don't know. He sells peaches down out of a shack on the weekend off the road. But he does it all. So he's got some good takes. He's got some good things going on. And we're going to do a little bit of some don't be that broker. I've always kind of like, it's funny, and I'm just going to lead in with this. I say don't be that broker. A lot of it, when I first got into the industry, were things I kind of did myself a little bit, or were tempted to do, I guess you'd say. You come to the point where you have that choice to kind of go one way or the other. That immediate gratification, or kind of build relationships. But I think the relationships that I had with my customers and things I cling to, I think I felt a little more accountable, right, to do things the right way. And plus, I was dispatching, had a lot of drivers, so I knew what they went through. Not everybody gets that, right? Not everybody gets to do that type of thing.
Let me
interject.
Go ahead, Tony.
Let me break in there for a second. Just so if you're another one of those brokers out there who took that other path, it is not too late.
No,
it's not too late.
It's not. That's a great point.
Let's talk about it. Let's have some.
You only have 2 choices, man. Just 2 choices to do. You can either go the right way or the wrong way, and you'll find out which way is the wrong way for sure.
But let's talk about that, and Jason, I'll have you touch on it here. First, I got to give a shout out. All my guys at Circle Logistics are on. Derek Cole, Stu, and those guys. Andy Green's probably watching at his happy place at his house. But shout out to those guys. Had to do that. But Jason, touch a little bit on where when you came to that point, what you kind of ran across. Did you have management in your ear helping you, or were they, maybe pushing you the wrong way or the right way? When did you come across that?
Man, well, first of all, I learned the freight game at what I would consider the upper tier freight brokerage, Allen Lund. They do things the right way. They're a family-oriented company. The culture there, they built culture before culture was a buzzword today, right? So I'm forever grateful for the opportunity that David and Mr. Lund and Kathy and everybody in that executive suite afforded me and other brokers alike. I made a decision one day. I had a tough load to cover, man. I'm not even going to BS you. I made a fake load on the back end and parlayed a carrier. I strung them along, and I did it, and I did it of my own accord. I needed to get it done, and I made a decision that was not one that I'm proud of. And it happened one time, and I felt so gross about it. I still feel gross. I have goosebumps thinking about it. If I caught one of my agents doing that, I'd fire him right now. Right now. We operate with integrity here, right? I think the problem is there's so much volume of stuff going on. You cannot properly train a rep for everything that's going to happen until it happens, right? And so I didn't want to be that guy who raised his hand and said, I can't cover this freight. I didn't want to be that guy who let the customer down. I was new, and these aren't excuses. I'm just telling you the decisions that I came to that day. These were the force multipliers that led me down that path. And man, it was gross. And then, I snowballed him on the back end. Hey, that load canceled. Sorry, deuces.
So
went about my business and did it one time, never again. And right then and there, I realized just how tight knit this whole thing is. it's big in size, but man, it's a small community.
Yep.
And
I agree.
you know, at the time, I didn't know I was going to be a lifer. At the time, it was just a job, man. I was there for beer and weed money. Let's go.
Yeah.
And then it became a part of my DNA. And then I started to reverse engineer all that crap from my own personal brand as an extension of Alan Lund. And that led me to management and running national accounts and doing $1 million of brokerage a year. Just, I did all the right things, but I had to do that one wrong thing in order to realize this is not the play here. This is not the play.
So how do you train people now? I mean, are you way more selective in who you hire, or are you just trying to put a warm body in there and try and figure out if they can hack it or not?
Nope, that's not how we operate. I run an agent-based model. My goal is to hire one agent a month, and I interview and I interview and I interview. I ask very pointed questions.
Can you share some with me? I mean,
yeah,
even maybe offline or whatever. I don't care.
I'm so transparent. I'm so transparent. I will tell you right now. First and foremost, my sponsor's watching. I told him I was going to be on a podcast called Hold My Beer, and he looked at me and I said, I'm going to rename it Hold My Root Beer. So, John, if you're watching, listen, soda pop, baby. That's it. These boys out here might be doing the big boy stuff, but Jason.
God bless you, John.
Hey-o, there we go.
Godspeed.
I'm about it, man. One of my first questions when I interview somebody is, do you want to work for somebody for the rest of your life, or is your motivation to be your own boss? Because I'm hiring agents who are effectively their own boss anyway. Right.
Sure.
And so the natural progression of things is broker at a W-2 level, independent agent, boss, right? Like the next obvious progression is, do you want to run your own agency? And so depending on what their motivation is how we work together to put together a plan. Because if I know your goal is to spend 2 years learning everything like I did and just flipping a switch and doing it yourself, how I'm going to treat you and motivate you and mentor you is very different than if you're just like, listen, if this is gravy, we're going to do this forever. Okay. I need to know your goals so that they can align with my goals and we can develop a plan. So then my next question is, if we pass the smell test, it's Sunday. What football team are you watching? That's it. That tells me a whole lot about who I'm dealing with, man. If you're a Seahawks fan, I understand who you are. If you're a Jets fan, woo! You know, if you're a Tom Brady fan, you can learn a lot about a person based on their sports team and their background, right?
Dive into that. Tell us. What's the translation?
Listen,
how does this touch to, how does this transition to, you know, I guess being proactive on getting the right people in the door to do the right things, right?
Well, great question. So first and foremost, one of my passions is sports. And so it allows me an opportunity right then and there to know if I'm going to connect with this person on an outside of the work hours level. It kind of guides me on the type of relationship I'm going to have with this person. It's not a make it or break it. If you're not into sports, that's fine. Oh, you're a car guy? Cool. I can pivot. I can talk cars all day long. Right. And so the first question is sports, because I grew up in an era where you either won or you didn't. There was no hugs for second place, man. It was, you're getting pizza if you won. If not, back to the batting cage.
Yep.
Right. Work harder.
Yep. Yep.
So I can use sports as a analogy for everything in business, especially logistics, right? It's competitive. It's cutthroat. Are you an alpha? Are you a cleanup hitter? What's your, you know, where do you fall within the lineup? Right. And so that's how I learn who I'm dealing with, right? Are you playing right field? You just here because your mom made you? Or are you here to just slug? And are you trying to be a baller one day? Those types of conversations allow me to really identify goals, who that person is, what they're about, because I'm hiring people that work from home. I'm not in the office with them every day. So I have a very pointed set of questions that very quickly tell me whether it's somebody I want to be in business with. And if it is, how to get the best out of them, right? So if you're not a sports person, I can't lean on sports analogies to circle the wagons on things that are working and not working. But if you're a car person, listen, I could make anything about cars as well. So I just have to find what is going to get you to click with me so that we can grow together. Yeah. Right. And so it also allows them on the reverse end. They can understand that I'm not just going to talk football all day. Right. Like, I mean, I could, but
Right.
Yeah, and that's analogies are key. I use them all. I always be like, I got some good ones, I got some bad ones. You know what I mean? I throw it at the wall, see what sticks. But because you're trying to get them to understand, like, because there's a lot to take in at first. I think, the big thing is just saying, hey, I know I'll shout out to Isaiah Greenfield, Kevin Ho. Some of those guys were my best friends that I came in and hired, and each one of them at about a certain point, probably about 3 weeks in, they're smart, sharp dudes, and they came to me and they were like, hey man, like, I just feel dumb. Like I feel like I'm not like, like there's, and I'm like, hey, there is just going to be a ton, and there always will be. It's why I still do this, because like I'm always learning. I'm like, you just got to take all of it and filter down what you need to know right now. Right. Yep. Be patient. You'll get to, because there's so many people that in so many jobs where they come and they can master it right away. Right. And you can master it. You want to do that, right? That's what you want to do because you're competitive. They are all sports guys, right? They want to be the best. And then they're still killing it because of that competitiveness they have. But, it was funny because it was like each one of them. And then even then after that, I noticed it even more and more, felt that way. But it was, how do you break it down? Those analogies, how do you break it down and make it so that, again, as a broker, you're understanding, all the different dynamics, but what you actually need to understand. And so, I've talked about it a lot, some of these posts, you see a lot of these guys like, oh, you're not a good broker if you don't know how much it takes to operate a truck. And it's like, hey, listen, that's not true. Like, it's great to know. And if you know that, that's great. But everybody's truck runs differently. You run a different mile. I mean, it depends on the truck you have. So, at the end of the day, they need to know what they need to know. You need to know how much it costs to run your truck, right? And there's a lot of drivers that don't even know it. So
no, we don't.
It's hard to do that though, right? Because you got a lot of pressure on you to come in, and the training, like you said, is tough because a lot of live training, it's where the handle it thing started. I've always told the story was I had all, when we first kind of really redeveloped, and there was only there was 3 of us that were like trying to put all this stuff together, and I had, account managers and carrier sales reps come to me all day long. And it's easy in this industry to have somebody do it for you. Right. Like TJ, hey, this is happening. What do I do? And I always had a floor desk, right? Even though I had an office, I always was out on the floor. Just because I can't really, sit still, and I like being in the action. But at the same time, they would come to me and I would, you could vet the situation, right? You could tell if you've been through a lot at that point, right? So you knew like if it was worth it or not. And I'd tell them to go handle it. Yep. Right. And at first they kind of look at you. Yep. And they're like, what do you mean? And I said, go handle it. But I want you to come back when you're done and tell me what you did.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, they came back all pumped up, fired up. Oh, I did this. I did that. I did this, and that's how you get that confidence. And like you said, once you have that confidence in this industry and you have that accountability and you start to realize you could probably be a lifer in this, that's when you start caring a little bit more. How do you get people to cross that edge of this is just a job to pay my student loans, to pay my, car, to take out my girlfriend who's way hotter than way out of my league. I probably shouldn't even have her. So I'm spending a lot of money on her. That's when you start doing these things that are, not ethical, right? And you're doing those things to try to get the quick buck. But a lot of times too, I'll tell you right now, the manager's pushing it, right? A lot of these managers were producers, big producers. Now all of a sudden they're managers and they got new people. They still want to be, they want to be cool. They want to be, oh yeah, I used to do this, man. I used to slang, we used to do this and this and that. And you'll have those conversations, but like it can't become the culture. It's got to be, how do you get to where you get them to click to realize that if I want to make this a long-term thing, I got to do the thing, do it the right way.
Here's the crazy part about our industry. There's no cookie cutter way to train somebody to do what we do. No. Every company has their own SOP, right?
Yep.
Every broker has their own critical thinking skills associated with each situation. 2 of my carriers could have the same problem happen, bring it to me. My response to fix it could be completely different. There is no real like copy and paste way to solve for X in what we do. Mm-hmm. So for me, like, for example, my boss who trained me, he's an OG. He's been in the game 30 years. He's one of those dudes that went old school and be like, oh, back in my day, I'd fax it up. Dude, don't say the fax word to me. You're so outdated. Like, it doesn't work like that today. I'm the first one in the company that started bulk emailing carriers instead of posting freight on the boards.
Carrier 411. You do carrier 411?
Well, but at the time we just had our own carrier base, but we weren't tapping into our own carriers. And so while everybody's fighting over a DAT login and trying to live call off the board, dude, I'm sniping 500 emails at a time. Hey, I have freight here. While these knuckleheads are trying to cover it today, I'm going to cover next week, next month, and next year. And to the point where they had to go out and buy a third-party tool because I was sending so many emails. Google was blocking me. So they went out and bought Campaigner. We ended up sending millions of emails a year as a company, but I'm the one that started that because I was like, there is a more efficient way to do this, right? Yes. And so with that said, you know, my boss was like, hey, man, back in my heyday, dude, this changes every day. We have to be relevant. We have to be current. And so, you know, when I'm looking to hire a person, one, I want to know what motivates them. Are you here for beer and weed money? Because I'll use that to leverage I'll dangle that carrot in front of you all day long because sometimes you lose sight of why you're here. But if you're here for house and retirement money or a better life for your kids, I'm going to push that psychological button as much as I can when you're not pushing it yourself. But I need to know what those things are. So my questions help me identify how to get the best out of people.
Yeah, that was the root of what I was asking. I want to be a better interviewer. I want to be a better leader. And, you know, I work at a place that values that highly, and it's awesome. Yeah. They pour into us. But I've always struggled with interviewing somebody and finding out what kind of person they are. And some of the worst interviews have been some of the best team members in my experience, and some of the and vice versa. That's
because you find those sales guys, they can sell themselves pretty well too. Right. Yeah. They sell themselves and they get in the door and they don't do anything.
Yeah, but when I'm asking people these questions, it's less of an interview and more of a, you know, are we going to be friends? Like I need to know that we're going to vibe on it. I'm trusting you with the keys to my house, right? You know, this is not your money, it's your house money, but it's real money to me. So you take an L, I'm writing that check. You vet the wrong carrier and there's a claim, I'm writing that check. So there's also this trust level that I have to build. Again, it's remote. Anybody can sell you over the internet, but I'm not in the trenches with these guys seeing their work ethic. Are they on time? How are they talking to customers? So there's a trust level there that you really have to have a process for that to be comfortable. I hate interviewing. That's the reason why I do it in an unorthodox way. Because if we just go down the corporate way, I feel like I'm out of place. I don't really know how to gauge these what I'd call canned, like tell me your strength and your weakness. That's crap, dude. That's crap. Who's your sports team, right? Oh, you're a Cowboy fan? Okay, that tells me a lot about you. Let's talk about that, right? And so it also allows them to be a little bit more comfortable because we're talking about something that's personable. But I'm also hiring agents. They've done this before. I'm really not looking for somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. I'm looking for somebody who knows what they're doing, but needs an opportunity to take it to that next level. So,
yeah, Tony, I'd say
hiring off the street. You know,
one of my questions, Tony, I'd say that's really good to ask. No matter what industry you're in, is I used to always be like, you know, what is it? You know, I have a certain way of doing things, right? And but what is it that you want from me, right? And I let them know right off the bat, because what's going to happen is you're going to kind of get them to kind of be comfortable. Because I say, you know, I haven't been a manager all that long, right? You know, I'm learning how to do this on the fly. Are you good with that? Are we going to be able to have feedback, conversations? You know, what is it that you want from me? And then I always try to pair this in there, because this is where you'll get them to open up a little bit. What is it that you want from me that you didn't get where you were before?
Yes.
What was that? And then you'll see, right? Some of them will get all pissed off and go on some rant. You know, someone will be like, hey, you know, actually, I really liked where I was before. I just really needed this. Or, you know, then you'll kind of get an idea of like what their mindset is. Did they leave because, you know, hey, my mom was, we moved back to town because of this, right? Okay. Or, you know, then you kind of get an idea of, you know, you're looking at the resume, maybe they got 3 or 4 jobs here in the last, 3 months. You're thinking, okay, what's going on here? But you get an idea then of what it is that they, want or need, or what it was that made them leave, or what that they're not compatible with before. Because, I know, and when I came up through the freight world, like I said at Circle, we were aggressive, man. We wanted to book freight. We wanted to book freight all day. I mean, on Sunday, Derek, I was talking about Derek. He'd call me on a Sunday, and he'd be whispering, and he'd be in there. And he's like, hey, I'm at a 1-year-old's birthday party, and I'm like, okay, well, what are you calling me for? And he's like, I just got 15 flatbed loads. They're sending them over right now. Chad's still bidding on some more. and I'd be like, I'll be in the office. You know, I've got like, I just ordered Chinese food. We'd go in the office on like a Sunday night. He's in trouble with his wife. I'm in trouble with my wife. And we booked a ton of loads.
Yep.
You know, so like, how do you balance that, right? How do you take that? Like, I can't expect that from everybody. You know, at the time it was what it is. But, you know, I think Jeff, you've been around, you know, a while, and I don't mean that just by the color of your mustache. I remember when I didn't even know who you were one time, and you were in the comments when Mike Nemi was on, and he's like, "Oh, that dude's a legend. He's a legend." So what do you find? You know, when you're looking at you know, new broker, and again, I want to say new because a lot of times it is the new ones that are doing it wrong, right? You know, how long did it take you to transition it to do things correctly and to realize that's the best way to do it? And then how often do you have to deal with, or have you had to deal with others, and how did you deal with it?
Yeah, it's a great question, TJ. And I can tell you first and foremost, and I say it all the time, I'm not a sales guy and I hate brokers. That's why I became one. And I'm going to take the seat of Tony, because I sat in Tony's seat, figuratively, not literally, for over 35 years. And I used to get called by brokers all day long. You know, when you're managing anywhere between $30 to $100 million worth of transportation spend, you got a target on your back. Everybody wants a piece of the pie. And you get these calls day in and day out from these brokers that didn't know their ass from their elbow. I'm just being frank. They were all about, I've got the capacity, I got the cheapest rates, you know, knew nothing about me, nothing about my business, didn't even check. They were all about
drayage,
quantity, drayage, quantity of calls being made, not the quality of the calls being made. Now, I'm a quality person. If last year, if I made 6 phone calls, that was a lot, but I nailed 5 out of those 6 because I concentrated on the large hitters out there. I'm not a transactional broker. I don't go for the scraps. Pardon me. I'm not a grabber. I'm a pick. So I like going after those big hitters because it's worth my while. Now I put a post out there about how long does it take on average to make a cold call, put that information in CRM. It's about 7 minutes. So you figure if you got your boss says you have to make 1,000 calls a month. In 3 months' time, that's 3,000 calls times 7 minutes. You're at 21,000 minutes, right? To get probably about 6% of qualified candidates out there out of that 3,000, and then you're going to get about 0.06 or 3.6 onboarders from that 180. Okay, that took 21,000 minutes to get those 3.6 people on board in 3 months, right? So if you're looking and you're concentrating on the 500K to $1 million accounts, you know, because I mean, you're making 1,000 calls every single month, you get that 3.6 clients on board in that range. You're looking at $1.5 million to $3 million worth of business in 3,000 calls. Now, if you concentrate on the $10 million accounts and the $20 million accounts, right? And you take that 21,000 minutes of time spent to gain 3.6, and you land one of them, which route do you want to take? I mean, that's the way that I look at it. I have empathy towards Tony. I had this conversation. Tony is a friend. I don't want to do business with him. That's not the way that I do business. Most of my business is word of mouth. One of my old bosses who actually trained me when I was an executive account manager. I was a closer. I wasn't a client development kind of guy. He's now working for me. Okay. He likes the way that I do the approaches. It's not for everyone. Just like Jason said, everybody has their own way of going about doing it. But I look at the time, and time matters. And if you got clients on board and you spent that time getting that background knowledge, knowing the person who you're reaching out to, and you got a little bit of spare time, what would happen if you took that extra time and you concentrated and focused on the current clients that you have in-house? How much more business can you get from those clients? Because remember, they're getting fed by their manufacturers, their vendors, and there's nothing else better than a referral from a current client that puts a feather in your hat and gives you those leads. So I just try to manage my time a little bit different than, having those quantity of calls, if that makes any sense.
Are you just doing sales or are you still booking loads?
I book roads. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
I do both. I love getting in the trenches. I've done it for many, many years. So
yeah. And I found some of the biggest accounts I ever landed were when I was booking freight, right? Because I didn't have time, right? I didn't have time to make a ton of calls.
no.
I went off of, the shippers and receivers and the things I knew and the relationships and the referrals, right? And I used those. And every chance I got, I would try to send an email or make a call, but like it was few and far between. But they were big fish, and they were. I was in. I had the mindset. I'm in the trenches. I'm moving. Like I know what the. Tony. I went up when I first got him on board at his old company. I went up and visited about his docks. And walked around and saw the docks and see. I was a dispatcher for a long time, so as I'm talking to him about this stuff, I think he gained a little bit of different respect for me because he's like, hey. This guy knows about this and this and this and that. That goes a long way.
It does.
You know how those things work, those ins and outs, and you don't got to know a ton, right? And like you said, sometimes you got to start with those 500,000 to $1 million because those smaller accounts, you get them in. Hey, sometimes those are suppliers to the big guys, right? And so now when you're going after the big guy, you can say, hey, I've got experience with this guy, with this guy, with this guy, and this guy, and they're all going into you anyways, right? So like it's a progression, but it's also making sure that. And you're doing things the right way, and it's efficiency, right? And it's different for each person. But Tony, I want to ask you this, Tony. So my man Chris Jolly, I had to shoot him text today because he put out. I don't know if you guys saw this, but he put out his first post he ever did.
Yep.
And I remember that. I remember that post because I had put one out that day, and we had just come off that rate debate. Me, him, Tony, and with Brandon Bay, and we're on Cassandra's show, everything, and me and Brandon were like, I don't know about this Jolly guy. You know what I mean? Like, we're cocky, and he's like the freight coach. Like, I should be the freight coach, And his first he puts it out today, and what was it? It was, hey, you got a load. It's not covered yet. It's Friday, right? And it's got to deliver Monday. It's not covered yet. You've got two options, right? You either take the loss and chalk it up and move on, right? Because you got other stuff to do, or you contact your customer, ahead of time and let them know, hey, if you want to, try to recover this, you can. Now, he even said too, and this is big on me, is he'd much rather just take the loss and move on, right?
100%.
Companies you can't always do that with. But I thought that was interesting. He did that, today as we talk about what, the right things to do as a broker are. And so, Tony, I want to hear from you. Obviously there's other routes to go in that situation, which aren't nearly as good, right? Guy breaks down an hour before the pickup because you tried all day to cover it. You couldn't.
Always.
But what, from your standpoint, you've dealt with it before, not as much now. You deal more with drayage now, but before, those full truckloads, what was your preference on that? When it came to those types of, just communication in general too, but if a broker messed up, how mad were you if they were actually proactive on things?
Oh, proactive is cool because I need to know what's going on because my job's on the line with the shipment. I have to answer to my GM, my manufacturing manager, my sales team. They're all counting on me to fulfill their promises that they made. So I'm counting on you. And if you drop the ball, we're all screwed. And you just can't do that. If you've got a 2%, 3%, 1.5% fail rate, mine's 0. Can't happen. I can't fail. Our customer put in a PO for this order. It has to go, and it has to go on time. I don't want to hear that you didn't bring your truck in or that you got some breakdown, or I don't want to see a receipt. I don't care. I don't care if the guy's house burnt down and he took off and went home. That's awesome. There's 400 other trucks out there that want to load today. But I care about the guy, and I hope his house didn't burn down or anything like that. But
sure,
none of that stuff matters because my load didn't move. And if you have to call me and tell me that my load's not going to move, I need to find a way to make it move, whether it's with your help or with my own help or my other contacts or what. One way or another, that load's got to move. Yeah. Like, I love the analogy thing, somebody gave me one today and said, how does a crab get around town? Sidewalk.
Oh.
Okay.
More of a dad joke than anything.
Oh,
but
wow.
No, but I think that goes to show.
Throw that in there.
Tony, so I wanted to touch on that because, it made me think today as we were coming into this, and I think it all boils down to literally everything we're talking about on doing things the right way as a broker, right? Number one, you got drivers that'll go to bat for you, right? They'll have your back on things, right? And take a hit on a load or help you out, whatever it is, right? But it's about hard conversations, and this is a weird industry from the standpoint of there's a lot of those. No matter whether you're doing good or bad, there's always hard conversations to have. Can you have those? And not only can you have them, but how do you approach them? And in a lot of other industries, right? A lot of other jobs, it's easy to avoid those. It's easy to pass those off and ignore somebody or whatever it is. But in this industry, you just can't do that. And if you do, it really, not only that, but I mean, it really does. It'll affect your production. It'll affect a lot of things because what's going to happen is you trying to avoid that. It's like Tony said, it's got to get moved. It's got to get done. And next thing you know, they're going around you. And now your manager's coming out of his office going, why haven't you called this person? This person's supposed to call you. I remember when I first started, I had that a lot, because I thought, I could maybe just avoid the situation. And it was like, and then I also was in a situation where we didn't really have titles back then. Circle's a huge company now. We were just book and freight and relied on the owners, but sometimes nobody was around. I couldn't get a hold of anybody. I had to just make a decision. I couldn't avoid it. I had to force myself to call and say, hey, the hardest one is always, hey, listen, I know, I told you I had this, I had a truck and everything, he fell off. I'm going to keep working on it, but I want to let you know. So maybe you can put it out for bid. If you find an option, let me know. I'll let you know if I find another one, but I know it's going to cost you money if I don't. Those are hard conversations to have, especially when you're new, right? I mean, calling a carrier, right?
Let me tell you what I did.
The appointment falls through. Now you got to call the driver and tell him. And he just got done talking to you about how he's happy because he could get home now to see his wife or something like that. Now you got to make that freaking call and be like, you can't get unloaded till the morning. That's hard. That's hard to do.
Nobody likes the hard conversations. And I tried to, we just started doing a thing this year, coming back from the break, where whenever we put a load out and it actually gets accepted by somebody, we shoot them a follow-up email with our list of expectations.
There you go.
Right off the bat. You accept this load. Here's what you need to do for us. I'm going to put it out there and set the way. If you can't do that, please get it back now and let me know. I want to know an ETA without having to ask you when my truck's going to show up. If it's not your name on the door, I want to know whose it is. We basically took this list of expectations from our best service people and just combined them.
Love it.
I will reply to this email and let you know when your driver's gone, how long, that way how long it took to get them loaded and get them out of here. Then I don't want to hear from you. And then I want to see the PODs.
Right. That day off.
Yeah. I want to know that everything's fine by not hearing from you. If something comes up,
Yep.
I'm going to, give me good news or don't talk to me. Let me know what's going on or don't talk to me. If something comes up and it breaks down, then I expect no news is good news, so that when you come and talk to me, I'm going to pay attention to your email because I get 8 billion a day.
Right.
Yeah. So Tony, that's a great point. But the way that I work, you wouldn't, and I'm not. This is not a sell. Don't take it this way.
I hear you.
This is the way that I work. You wouldn't have to do that. I would identify all those needs and expectations up front.
Yep.
Guess what? I'm going to have needs and expectations of you as a shipper. It's a two-way street here. It's not going to be all me. It's going to be all you. Just as you demand as many things that you need from me, I'm going to expect the same thing. So if my driver gets to your place and he's waiting, we're going to have a conversation. Okay. Because I'm going to know that up front. I got a 60 checklist profile for each facility that you need to fill out before I even want to do business with you. Okay. I'm going to know everything that I need to know about your facility operation hours, expectations, everything that I need to know in order to be successful, to be a good service provider. That's why I'm not a broker. I'm more of transportation management. So I'm looking at it at a point of view from a shipper's point of view, not as a broker, because I only meet my own expectations because I know what I wanted when I had those big operations.
That's why you're very successful.
I didn't call that because, to me, there's no end game. That's why I've been in it for such a long time, because I love what I do, and it's not a job. It's a freaking daily adventure. And every day you get blindsided. It's how you respond to those things that are unexpected. And especially when you're training people. Now, when I was on the shipper side, I would give them the what if scenarios. What happens if this happens? How are you going to respond with that? How are you going to reply, to carriers? Because I was on your side, all this kind of stuff. Because you got to be proactive that way. We all have the exception to the rule is the act of God. Okay. No matter what your expectations are that need to be met, if there's an act of God thing that happens, I have no control. You have no control. It's the things that you can control that there's no exceptions at all to. I think you would agree to that, right? You needed something, I even used to get down to the power unit, and I used to do a deep dive on it. How come the turbo blew? When was the last time the PM was done on it? Oh, it was done 2 weeks ago. Why did it blow again? It's all these kind of
things. You do a pre-check.
Oh, yeah, you got to do the pre-check on everything. It's just like when a trailer rolls into my dock, I walk out there with a driver and I do a pre-check and walk around the whole thing. If I see a bald tire, I'm telling them to get the hell out. I'm not putting my brand, my image in that trailer. God forbid something happens, I don't want it coming back on me, So like when I do the consultancy side on the logistics, I train all these people to go and do that. It's all the safety things and trying to save those additional costs, because nobody wants to nuclear the verdict, right? So there's so many different things. I don't talk about freight. Okay. I don't talk about rates. That's not important to me. The biggest thing for me is the logistics operation, because everything happens from the inside out, not from the outside in. It just doesn't happen.
That drives confidence. So once you have confidence, right, you can have. So I remember, when I was working with my, people, on landing accounts, we get on these discovery calls, and I'm assertive, because it's one of those things where, again, I don't want to waste time. I need this from you. And they love when I say, listen, I'm going to get you an escalation list. I'm going to, for everybody over here to get to call, I'm going to get you this. I'm going to get you this. All our expectations. I want this from you. The reason I want this from you is because I want your expectation, SP, whatever it is, so I can put it into our rate con so that our drivers have it every single time. I can let our track and trace team know.
It's a work instruction.
Right. And they love hearing that, though, because it holds them accountable. But the biggest thing, though, I think you hit it on nail on the head. And this is why Tony's been so influential in my career. As much as he's a knucklehead, but we have great conversations, and he's taught me a lot. And, I'll let him vent to me. I'll let him tell me, how he gets excited about some new process that he puts in. He'll get pumped up. He's all about the culture at Lippert, but, he'll talk about some new process. But I learn those things. And when I'm having a conversation with a shipper, then, right, I know what is expected from somebody who's a great shipping manager who expects excellence and is going to make sure it happens. I know those things. And when you know those things, what it is they want to hear and what it is that they want. And when you talk to somebody, I don't care if it's in sales, especially in sales though, or your account manager, it doesn't matter. You have a different connection with them that they're not used to. It's not some punk off the street they're understanding because you understand them, and it holds both sides a little bit more accountable, I'd say, from that standpoint. But if I could give anybody any advice, I will tell you this: to make sure you're doing the right thing, it is get to know your shippers, get to know your load planners and your customers, because once you have a relationship with them, you feel obligated to make sure you do the right thing. And it's not easy, right? A lot of what you were talking about, Jeff, I learned from the truck side, right? We had our yard was right there. So I'd go out and meet, I just shot a deer that year. So I had some deer meat for one of my drivers. I'd go out there and he'd show me how to, do the kind of stog or whatever it was. And then also, being out the docks and doing those things, right? And then also Tony. But a lot of people aren't going to be exposed to that. Like, how do you get that? So if I had any advice for anybody, it's reach out to a shipper, get somebody that's in shipping, and don't try to sell them. Just say, hey, can I give you a call? Can I just pick your brain and learn a little bit about what you see and what you think and what your processes are and what your pain points are and stuff? Tony, I knew after that cassette show, we talked for a year before I even asked him if he needed help. I think he was bitching about a lane he had a year later. And I was like, hey, I actually have trucks in that lane. And that's how it really started. I never tried to sell him because I was getting so much value from just the conversations we were having and what he was telling me about what he was doing.
And the next thing you know, we're committing to a snowball game at Notre Dame in December. I don't know.
Yeah. The guy's got a trailer, just a single trailer outside of his facility with a pipe that comes out of the building that just shoots it full of sawdust. And when the trailer's full of sawdust, some local guy comes and takes it, dumps it, and they just put the trailer back again. Like these are things like I'm like, they do that? Like, whose trailer is it? Where do you get the trailer? Does anybody know it's there? Why is there so much sawdust? You know what I mean? Like, it's just little things where, like, next time I'm looking at a shipper or a manufacturer that's doing the same type of thing, I understand their processes and what's going on. I would never had that.
Yeah, I was talking to Scott Watanabe the other day, and he has like a 12-week training period for Armstrong. What they do when the newbies come on board. One of the things that I suggested to him, and I think every broker out there should definitely do this, and you're not going to learn this overnight. It's just the perspective and the understanding of what the day-to-day operation is for a shipper, is to talk to a local DC or warehouse and bring your trainee into that facility and say, listen, I want my guy, my girl here to get a good understanding about warehouse and distribution operations. I want to see firsthand what goes on there, because the more that you're not going to learn it in one day. There's no snowball chance in hell that's going to happen, but it's the perspective and the demand and the timing and everything. I mean, I could go in great details, but I don't have enough time here. But it's a better picture. They kind of grasp it, that it's a lot more than I got the best rates, I can get you capacity. Everything starts from there. Until you get a really good understanding, that's when the rubber hits the road. That's where the value is going to come in. That's how you're going to meet and exceed that shipper's expectation, because you have that knowledge. You can't go in there blind. You're going to have a tough time. And guess what happens when you go in blind? You fake it to make it, and the bullshit lines come out. And the smart shippers out there, they know exactly where you're coming from. You can't pull that wool over their eyes. I mean, I'm not going to put words into Tony, but I know where Tony's coming from. We've had conversations. And I know he'll attest to that, because he gets hit all the time with the same bullshit.
So I'm gonna piggyback. That's a lot to unpack right there. So I'm gonna let you in on the sauce, right? I have ADD so bad that I need to constantly be in the thick of things. So I spend the majority of my day with LinkedIn up in my upper corner, and I just absorb everything.
Yep.
I may not be engaging, but I listen to people who have problems and I make notes of it. I listen to people who are complaining about how brokers are treating carriers. I make a note of it. I reverse engineer other people's problems that I don't necessarily have to make sure, one, I have a process in place should it come up. Two, I can also help educate people on, that's a simple fix. Why aren't you doing it this way? You need alternatives, options.
Yes.
And I'm tapping into an incubator, if you will, of thousands of years of knowledge between our networks. I've been doing this 10 years. How long have you been doing this, Tony?
Oh, geez. I don't know. 30.
Okay. What about you, TJ?
Yeah.
How long have you been doing this? There's probably 100 years.
Oh, yes, me? Oh, sorry. Nine, almost 10. Sorry.
There's probably 100 years of experience between the four of us right here. You're telling me between the four of us, we can't solve for X in our sleep, right? It's not like we're learning something new here. It's the same old stuff.
Yeah,
it's being humble. It's like, you got to be humble.
It's being able to know what toggle switch to hit. I mean,
Yes.
You get a good vibe, that good feeling, But until you see it and realize that, or have worked in those trenches, you can't get that understanding. I'm telling you right now, there's no way. I think it's easier for a sales guy to come out of logistics and go into sales than it is a sales guy going into logistics.
Yeah,
because they're gonna get lost, because the broker like myself, which I don't call myself one, it's how you shouldn't do things that affected you the most as a shipper. And that's why I got so much empathy towards that, because I know what it takes, man. I've been in that seat. You gotta admit, there are so many unethical, uneducated, unknowledgeable brokers out there that are just slammed in the damn seat. They have no directive, they have no training, and it's hit the phones. It's like, it gives all the good brokers, us, here, a really bad name. It really does. And it's a shame. And everybody should get on the same wavelength and saying, you know what, we've got to change this industry and make it a lot better than it's perceived to be, because there are some really good guys.
Yeah. It starts here with the conversations, because it is that you're right. I mean, especially like I always see it on like at the carousels reps, right? Some new carousel, because you can sit down and cover loads right off the bat, right? And you're busy, you're hiring, and then the guy's got a load, and so the guy, Dale, the driver Dale, calls from Kentucky on this load, and this carousel rep has no idea what they're talking about. They're brand new, and he's going, "This guy's about getting dumb." I don't know how many calls I had to get on. Like, let me transfer Dale to me. Let me talk to him. Who the hell is this? He don't know what the hell he's doing. And I said, I know. I got you. When you start kind of spitting some of that language that they understand, but like, that's where, it's about, and a lot of people that continue to do that, right, and have those unethical ways, they tend to be a little bit cocky and a little bit, overzealous because they're doing well, because it's easy to do well. I always tell people all the time, like, you could put like 50% effort into this industry and still make money. Like, and
the thing is, TJ, I have to interject. What happens is that agent who's not trained, who represents your company, gives your company a bad name.
Yes. Yep.
No matter which way you look at it. So why aren't the owners and the trainers there more cognizant of that, what, if I F up and I don't train this guy out here, everything that I've worked for my company, it's going to get a bad name. I'm going to get a bad rap. And guess what? I'm going to get red flagged, and it's going to travel throughout the internet. It's going to be word of mouth. And who the hell needs that? And I put all my blood, sweat, and tears in here, and I'm going to let this idiot drive my business in the wrong way? No, man, I'm not going to let that happen. I'm not going to let that happen.
And that's the humility part of it. Like, so the humbleness, like I said, like being willing to learn, like what Jason was saying, like, like if you're cocky and you think you know it all, and you're doing things the right way, you're going to bitch about a lot of things, and then you're going to do things the way that makes it best for you. But like, if you're willing to learn, like he said, I'm always sitting down reading articles, listen to you guys. And when I first got in, I remember I was, dispatch, I'd be on the phone, these drivers, man, like a couple of them, like I knew when I answered that phone, it was going to be an hour conversation. We're going to be talking forever. But I loved it. And I remember my owner, he came to me, he's like, hey, I know you're busy, you're doing great, he's like, but you got to limit sometimes those phone calls at night with these guys, because you'll wear yourself out. But for me, I was absorbing it. Like, I was listening to what these guys were saying and not acting like I knew it all. And so, and then to your point, Jeff, when I had, a large team of people doing things, they'd come to me, and if they came to you and were like, man, this carrier, man, they're bitching about it. It's like, there's probably a reason, right? They're probably trying to cover their own tracks. So I would always call the dispatcher or the driver or whoever it was that needed to be called and talk to them and say, hey, listen, I apologize, this happened, right? Just having humility, whether it was our fault or not. Just like, hey, I apologize, this happened. They're fairly new. I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to use this as a learning moment, right? Let's make them better. I mean, honestly, they mean well. They went this way. They got a little defensive, and I'll talk to them about that, right? Everybody's blood gets boiling, and then they start to understand. But those calls are important because it is your reputation. Those things matter. And then you go and talk to the rep about it too. It's like, hey, I get your side of it, but you got to understand what this guy's thinking too.
Yeah, you don't say something that you don't know. If you don't have the answer to the question, find out that answer. Don't BS them. Don't BS them. Don't fake it to make it and say something that you're going to regret. Say, you know what? Listen, I understand exactly what you're saying. Listen, I'm going to get back to you ASAP. Go to your manager and saying, I just ran into this situation, never faced it before. This is it. You need that collaboration. It's all about collaboration and understanding from each other, because as a manager, you have to be like a psychologist or a chameleon. You have to shed your skin, because everybody is different. You're not going to treat Jason the same way as you're going to treat Tony or even myself, So you have to understand that, and to get into that person's mind to help them to move in that right direction. But if you don't have that open door policy as a manager, you're going to fail miserably.
To make those connections and learn that, you got to be, like I said, you got to be willing to, if you go to that and you say, hey, I got to talk to my manager, I want to make sure I get this right. Say some driver's pissed off, hey, whatever it is. And then you come back and say, hey, I'm new. You know what I mean? Like, I'm new. I'm trying to learn still or whatever. Like, you'll make a friend.
Exactly.
Like, oh, really? Oh, yeah. Well, like drivers, man, they love that stuff. They love to teach, right? And so now, I mean, look at, like, two of my best friends I got Tony Darnell who's a shipper and Claudio who's a driver, right? And we talk all the time because I like, I learned, I'm in that thing. And Jason, I know you guys touch on that.
Man, there's a lot to unpack there. I'm really specific and intentional about who I do business with, right?
Yes.
I'm gonna be the first one to tell you you're not getting a cold phone call or email from Jason. I'm too busy servicing my accounts to knock on doors. And let me tell you this: if I were a shipper and somebody were coming to me with capacity, well, are you good at your job? Because if you were, you'd be busy. You wouldn't be calling me. So there's a reverse psychology effect there. I'm gonna be honest. I'm an asshole. But you know what? In order for me to survive in life, I have to understand how to deal with assholes, right? And so I'm not knocking on your door because I'm busy. My inbound referrals and how we onboard customers, I turn customers away. And I don't say that in a cocky way. I say that because it's not a good fit.
No, it's
You know?
good. That's great.
Sacrifice. Yeah.
You're looking for congruency.
You come at me and use the words, I need the best rate. Great, call someone else, right?
Yep.
I need the cheapest rate. Listen, I told the shipper this morning, if you can find max freight lines on Groupon, I'll honor that. Until then, I'm paid in full, right? I guarantee my service because I look at your load in one of two ways. I'm either buying capacity or I have wheels in hand. And I'm going to tell you that. And my rate is explicit to that A or B. And if I'm buying capacity, I'm going to be transparent. It's going to be cost plus, but we're not going to play that I don't have a truck game because I'm worried about my margin, right? I need to gauge your urgency with this freight. Is it a one-time deal and it's got to go? Cool. I'll call you with wheels in hand. We'll go from there. I do not take freight without wheels in hand, and the customer is aware of that. I don't play that let me rate it and pray game. I don't lose money. I'm not in this business to lose money, right? And so I have large shippers that come to me and I say, cool, you have 3,000 loads to Utah. I've got 2,000 trucks in hand. I do this all day, every day. I have for 10 years. I'll give you my 2,000 trucks. I want 2,000 loads. I won't decline your freight if the market goes up. I won't come to you and ask you for more money. Don't do that to me. I also won't take your spot freight if you have contract freight awarded to me.
Yeah.
I don't play that game. That in and itself is the reason we are in this mess is everybody's playing leverage, right? I'm just going to charge you a fair market rate to do this forever. And I'm going to not participate in putting my carriers out of business by paying them fairly. And so shippers pay me what they pay me. I pay the carriers what I pay them. My overhead is, I'm going to tell you right now, my overhead is minimal. So I can afford to come in lower and pay a carrier more and still be profitable. That's the benefit of somebody like me. Second, you're hiring me for my time. I'm not outsourcing this to a W-2 employee. My phone is on 24/7, right? You need something right there, right? And so that's the difference between what I offer and say a large company that has 7 layers to get to the person who makes the decision. I'm A, B, and C. I'm the backup plan. Like, this is it. And so I have to explain that to people. I have to, this is how we roll. If you want it, cool. If not, no harm, no foul. I'm not for everybody. But when you get a taste of how I operate, there's no going back. And so I don't have to make outbound phone calls.
Hey, to end it, hang on a second. But to end it here, hang on. Let's get this. We got to wrap it up here a little bit. So here's what we're gonna do. We'll go around. I want each of you guys to take about a minute and kind of give your biggest thought on what it takes to do things the right way. What maybe make it click or what you see or whatever it is. Okay. For real quick though, I want to give a shot. Ryan Muhammad's on. Louis, Ryan Reinhout's on. Dylan Turner, Nerf's on. He said, Tony, you need any. Nerf said, Tony, you need any drayage.
Oh yeah.
Shay Dixon's on.
Hi Shay.
Dylan Turner. I'm only seeing some of the comments that are coming through, so I may miss you guys. But let's start. Jeff, why don't you start?
Yeah, I think first and foremost that you shouldn't talk freight or rates and learn more about the shipper, who he is, his background, what he's done in his life, and also about the companies that he's worked for, and then his current company, and learn it like the back of your hand and have those conversations really easy like you would with your mother.
Ooh, nice. There we go.
Okay.
All right, Jason.
All right. They say, the golden rule, do unto others, right? I'm 100% on board with that. I'm going to treat people the way that I want to be treated. My bar is high for myself. And so as an extension, it's high with the people I associate with, both in front and in back. And so I'm going to do you the right way. And the minute you show me what you're about and it's not in alignment with me, deuces. no harm, no foul. Everybody shows their hand at some point. The people that are successful are the ones that are about their business when it's good and bad.
Yeah.
Like we all know, nothing in this business is ever going to be easy. Every day it's a shit show out here. I want to know what you're going to do to fix it. That's all. I'm good at fixing problems. That's my job. My job is to fix your problem. That's why I'm here. That provides job security, right? And so, you know, if you're going to cut me off at the knees for $50 because you found a cheaper truck, cool, have fun. Don't ever call me again.
Yeah.
See ya. I'm with you, Jeff. I'm not transactional, man. That's not nope.
Good. I like that. That's
stay in your ground and be confident in yourself.
Listen, if you stay in your lane, there's no traffic, right? If you're vibing with everything else, man, it's bumper to bumper. My lane is free and clear, man. Like I'm good.
No traffic.
Tony, what's your biggest advice to brokers on what just from what you've experienced on staying ethical?
Integrity, man. I mean, the name of the game is integrity. Stop telling me that you got a truck that you don't have. Stop telling me that there's a breakdown that isn't there. Don't take a load if you don't have it covered. I get it. You want the margin. You want the money. I understand. Everybody does. But maybe have somebody in the back pocket looking for a load before you go and accept something. Get to know your driver too. Maybe if I post a load out there that's going to Omaha and you got a guy that wants to get to Charlotte and I'm in Indiana, don't accept it for him or her. You know, I mean, know your driver, know what's going on both sides. I mean, the broker, I don't feel any kind of shame in saying that. My job's way easier than a broker. And I got a lot of respect for you guys that do it well because I don't think I could. That's it, man. Just have all the integrity in the world. Know as much as you can possibly know about both ends of your supply line there when you're you know everything you can about your shipper so that you're not offering a guy that doesn't use containers drayage. And
and that's
know enough about your carriers that you're not offering an Omaha load to a North Carolina guy.
Yeah, well, if you have any dray coming out of Houston, give me a call.
And I'll say, my thing is, there it is. Like I touched on before, be humble, be willing to learn. It doesn't happen overnight. So you can't, like Tony said earlier, it's never too late to start. But you can't, do things a certain way and then think that, as I progress in my career down the line, I'll turn it on then, right? I'll start doing it then when I become a manager or something. You got to do it now because it takes time, like to learn what it is. You got to be in those situations, right? You got to make those decisions when it's hard. It's hard to. I've been passed up on opportunities. I've been, I'm competitive too. It's hard. I've watched people. I always said like I want to compete, but I want to compete by beating you, right? And there's people that want to compete and win by tearing somebody else down to their level. I hate that, but like at the same time, sometimes it's very hard to say, hey, I'm going to do this the right way, even though I may not win at this point, or I may not get an opportunity or whatever it is, because I'm telling you, you will find as you go that shit comes back around.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the smallest huge industry in the world. And it's like, you end up talking to a driver that you effed over at one point, or next thing you know, a shipper, he used to work here, now he works here, and all of a sudden he's like, oh, TJ. So like you got to understand that like it doesn't take much, to really kind of get your name out there as not well, and that's what will ultimately determine your career. Whether you want to keep it going, because as you continue to grow, right, and say you do move up in roles, people look to you for things, and they're going to say, hey, I remember this, I remember that. You got it. And they're looking and they're talking to your old owner, your old boss or whatever. Like, how was this guy? How was this guy? So it's never too late to start, but it takes time, and just be ready to fail. And as long as you just learn from it, take that, learn from it. I always tell my people to fail. As long as you're not doing it like 3-4 times in a row, that means you're not learning from it. But, fail, but do things the right way, and you will have a long career, and it will help you out. You'll be surprised.
We call that fail forward.
Fail forward. Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing, you have no competition. The only competition you have is yourself.
You. That's
right.
That's it, man.
All right. Hey, we got 1 minute. Thanks, guys. Jason, thanks, brother. Jeff,
Jason.
Tony, I love you.
Hey, I learned a valuable lesson the other day. I rented a limo from a limo place for the New Year's, and the guy showed up and got out and walked away. And I'm like, hey, I rented this limo. What are you doing? He's like, well, you rented a limo, but not the driver. So here I spent $400 and nothing to show for it.
Whoa.
Oh,
What's big? Tell me, did you drive it? Did you drive it out?
Godspeed, my friends.
Ah,
Go book some freight. Handle it.
We'll catch you later. All right, boys.
terrible.